All right, so after you finish the warm-up, you're going to try to find the degrees of the polynomials. So, the first one is just 5x. When you just have an x by itself, the degree is 1. The next one, 5x to the third and y to the second, the biggest degree there is 3 because of the x to the third. And then for the one that's just 4 by itself, the degree is 0. Because if there's no x's in it, then the degrees are just 0. So when we look at these things here, the first one, if you look at the 6, the degree is 0 because there's no x's involved. And this is just called a constant because it's just a number. When it's just the number, it's called a constant. There's one term because there's just the 6 by itself. And we would call this a monomial because there's only one. When there's only one number or one set of numbers involved, we call it a monomial. The next one, the 5x plus 9, has a degree to the 1 because there's at least an x in there and it's an x to the first power. When you have the 5x plus 9, it's considered linear because you're just graphing it and it turns into a straight line. The 5x is one term and the 9 is another term, so that's a total of 2 terms. And we would call this a binomial because there's two things. There's a 5x and there's a 9. So that would be a binomial. The next one is 4x squared plus 7x plus 3. It says something to the second degree because of the x squared. When we name this, it would be called quadratic because when there's ever an x squared, it's always quadratic. The number of terms is 3 because there's the 4x squared is one term, the 7x is another term, and the 3 is another term. And this would be called a trinomial because there's 3 terms involved. The next one, 2x to the third power, the biggest degree is to the third power, and this is called cubic. Whenever you have something to the third power, it's called a cubic equation. And the number of terms is 1 because there's just the 2x to the third power, and when there's only one term, again, it's called a monomial. The biggest degree, and this one is to the fourth power because it's 8x to the fourth, and that's called a quartic. When you have something to the fourth power, it's called quartic. And the number of terms is 3 because there's the 8x to the fourth, 2x to the third, and the 3x. Each of those is one term, so this would also be a trinomial. In these example problems, they're asking you to first find the x squareds. So you have 2 here and 3 here, and they want you to put a circle around all of the x squared. So you're going to circle the 2x squared and the 3x squared, and that's for a total of 5x squareds. The second one, they want you to find all the x's. So there's a 5x and a 3x, and that adds up to 8x. And then lastly, you have an 8 and a 2. And we're going to put a box around those numbers, and that equals 10. So that's how, when you combine like terms, you're only combining things that have the same x value. So you have x squareds or x's or just numbers. This one's very similar. We have a 10x squared and we have a 5x squared. So for the x squareds, we're going to put 15 because the 10 plus 5 makes 15. For the x's, you have 1x and 3x. When there's no number in front of the x, it's just 1. So there's a total of 4 x's. And you have 8 and 21, which makes 29. And then for this final example, you have 2x to the fifth and negative 3x to the fifth. It's 2 minus 3 actually makes negative 1 because it's like you owe someone, you get $2 and you owe someone $3. You still owe them 1 after you've paid. The x squareds, there's a negative 3 and a 6. So 6 minus 3 is 3, so 3x squared. And then 10 plus 12 is 22. And that is how you find the degrees of polynomials. This last one, you've got negative 5x to the third. That's the only one, so it stays negative 5. And then you've got negative 9x squared, negative 3x squared. That comes out to be negative 12x squared. Then you have that 3x, and you also have the negative 11 and negative 12. The 3x stays by itself because that's the only one. And then you just add negative 11 plus 12 is 1.